Anna stood behind the counter at Cozy Brew, the local cafe where she had worked for the past 3 years. The rhythmic hum of the espresso machine, the clink of ceramic mugs, and the quiet chatter of the morning crowd formed a comforting background to her thoughts. She had always loved the simplicity of her job, interacting with the regulars, crafting each cup of coffee with care, and slipping into the routine of her daily life. But today was different. Her mind kept drifting back to yesterday's events. A seemingly insignificant moment had spiraled into something she hadn't expected. Yesterday, she had defended Elon Musk, of all people, against a group of patrons who were mockingly discussing him. She hadn't thought it would make such an impact, but now she felt as though her world was about to shift in ways she wasn't prepared for. The encounter had been brief, a fleeting moment in time, but something about the way Elon had responded had stuck with her. It hadn't been an extravagant gesture or an over-the-top show of appreciation, but it had been enough to plant a seed in her mind. She had simply stood up for him, but in doing so, she had found a quiet strength within herself. She hadn't expected it to mean anything to him, or anyone else for that matter, but in the days since, she had wondered if she had done the right thing. Was standing up for a stranger really as important as it felt at the time? Did it even matter? It was a thought she couldn't shake, especially now as she wiped the counter absent-mindedly, lost in contemplation. As she stared into the distance, her eyes caught movement at the entrance of the cafe. She didn't need to look twice to recognize the man walking through the door, Elon Musk himself, his presence immediately commanding attention. He was flanked by two tall bodyguards, their black suits standing in stark contrast to the cozy, laid-back atmosphere of the cafe. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. The low hum of conversation ceased, and every eye turned toward the man who had been the subject of countless headlines. Anna's heart raced. Was it really him? Could he be here because of what had happened yesterday? Elon scanned the room, his sharp eyes pausing when they landed on her. Anna felt her pulse quicken as his gaze locked with hers, as if he was seeing through the noise of the cafe straight to her. He smiled faintly, but it was more of an acknowledgement than a friendly gesture. Anna's stomach twisted into knots. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to come back, let alone to seek her out. "Anna," he called, his voice carrying through the room with ease, low and steady. His tone was calm but insistent, drawing all attention to their exchange. The sound of her name on his lips felt surreal, and 1,000 thoughts rushed to her mind in that instant. How did he even know her name? She hadn't introduced herself yesterday. She hadn't thought she needed to. But there it was, his recognition of her, a moment that felt almost too significant to comprehend. "Mr. Musk," she stammered, unsure of what to say or how to act. Her hands instinctively wiped away the invisible specks of dust on the counter, even though the surface was spotless. Her pulse was hammering in her chest. She hadn't expected to see him again, much less have him come up to her like this, in front of everyone, under such strange circumstances. The cafe was suddenly too small, too crowded, too full of eyes watching their every move. She was used to being just another face in the background, not the center of attention. Elon's eyes softened, but there was no sign of arrogance in his demeanor, nothing that suggested he felt above anyone else. He walked toward the counter, his footsteps measured, calm and purposeful. "I need to speak with you," he said simply, his voice carrying an air of quiet urgency, as though whatever he wanted to discuss couldn't wait. The moment the words left his mouth, Anna felt every pair of eyes in the cafe shift to her. People leaned forward, curiosity evident in their expressions. She could feel the weight of the room on her shoulders, but she refused to let it show. She had faced uncomfortable situations before, but this was different. Anna swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. "What is this about?" she asked, her voice shaking only slightly. She wasn't sure whether to be flattered or terrified. What could a man like Elon Musk possibly want with someone like her? She was just a waitress, a young woman working a simple job in a small, quiet town. She had never been anyone important, never had dreams of grandeur. Her world had always been small, confined to the cafe and the routine she had built for herself over the years. But now, standing in front of her, was the very definition of influence and power, and it was all directed at her. Elon studied her for a moment, his gaze unwavering but not unfriendly. "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday," he began, his voice taking on a reflective tone. "What you said, it struck me. You weren't just defending me. You were standing up for something much more important. Kindness. Integrity. The world could use more of that." His words hung in the air, heavier than they had any right to be. Anna blinked, trying to process what he was saying. She had only spoken out because she couldn't stand to hear people belittle someone without knowing the full story. But hearing Elon put it like that made her realize the weight of her words. She hadn't expected them to have such an impact. "I didn't think it was that big of a deal," Anna said, shrugging slightly, trying to downplay her own involvement in the situation. She still didn't understand why Elon Musk, of all people, was thanking her for what had seemed like a small act. She had just done what felt right in the moment. "I was just standing up for you, like anyone would do if they saw someone being treated unfairly." "No," Elon interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. "You weren't just standing up for me. You were standing up for what's right, for something bigger than yourself. People don't always have the courage to do that, especially when the person they're defending is as divisive as I am. That's why I'm here." Anna was taken aback. She had never considered herself particularly courageous, certainly not in the grand scheme of things. She was just a regular person, doing her best to make it through each day. And yet, here he was, telling her that her actions had meant something more than she had realized. It was a humbling thought, one that made her feel both small and somehow important at the same time. Elon's expression softened, and for a brief moment, he seemed more human, more relatable than the billionaire mogul the world had come to know. "I want you to join my foundation," he said, his words calm but carrying the weight of an invitation that seemed both too surreal and too grand to be real. "I think you have the qualities we need. The world needs people who are willing to stand up for what's right, who don't shy away from difficult conversations, and who believe in the power of kindness and integrity. That's why I'm offering you this opportunity." Anna's world seemed to stop for a moment. She blinked, the words not fully registering. Join his foundation. The thought was so outlandish that it almost felt like a dream. She was just a waitress. She had no special skills, no experience in philanthropy, no background in business or technology. She was just a young woman trying to survive in a world that often felt too big and too fast for her. How could she possibly belong in the same world as someone like Elon Musk? How could she be part of a foundation that had the potential to change the world. I don't know what to say, Anna stammered, her mind racing. This wasn't just an offer, it was an invitation to leave behind everything she knew, to step into a world that was as foreign to her as the moon. I mean, I don't have the experience to work with a foundation. I'm just here to serve coffee. That's all I know how to do. Elon smiled, but it wasn't a patronizing smile. It was understanding, even empathetic. Experience can be learned, but character, that's something you either have or you don't. And from what I saw yesterday, you have character. I'm not looking for someone who knows everything. I'm looking for someone who has the heart to learn, to care, and to make a difference. That's all that matters to me. His words resonated with Anna in a way she hadn't expected. Her mind swirled with uncertainty, but there was something in his voice, in his belief in her, that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Maybe she didn't have all the answers, but maybe she didn't need to. Maybe this was the opportunity she had been waiting for, even if she hadn't known it until now. Before she could respond, Mr. Smith, the owner of Cozy Brew, walked in. The familiar bell above the door jingled, and the momentary tension in the room broke as he entered, oblivious to the monumental conversation taking place. Mr. Smith caught sight of Elon and Anna and gave them a puzzled look, though he remained silent, unsure of what was going on. The cafe, which had been holding its breath, slowly resumed its hushed murmurings. Elon turned to Mr. Smith with a small smile. "I just wanted to thank you for running such a wonderful place," he said sincerely. "It's people like Anna here who remind me why I do what I do. She has something special, and I think the world could use more people like her." Mr. Smith blinked, stunned by the praise, but nodded politely, unsure of how to respond. The situation felt surreal to him. His best waitress, someone who had always been unassuming and quiet, was now the subject of admiration from one of the most powerful men in the world. "I'll be honest," Mr. Smith said, after a long pause. "I didn't really get why you defended him yesterday, Anna. People don't always have the best things to say about someone like Elon Musk. But now, I'm starting to understand why you did it. Maybe it's not about agreeing with everything a person does, it's about standing up for what's right, for their humanity." Anna met his gaze, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. "Thank you," she said softly, touched by his words. She had always been a bit of a lone wolf in the cafe, just another face in the background, but today, for the first time, she felt seen. She realized that even small acts could have an impact, that standing up for someone could change not just the course of a conversation, but the way people saw the world. Turning back to Elon, Anna took a deep breath, her nerves momentarily calming. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'll join your foundation, but I don't know where to begin. I don't know what I can bring to the table." Elon's smile widened, genuine and encouraging. "That's why we'll figure it out together. You don't have to know everything right away. It's the willingness to try that counts." In the days that followed, Anna's life began to change in ways she never could have anticipated. She dove into the work with Elon's foundation, learning about the projects they were involved in, projects focused on sustainability, education, and advancing technology for social good. She was far out of her comfort zone, but the more she learned, the more she realized how much she had to offer. Her fresh perspective, her ability to see the humanity in people, was exactly what the foundation needed. Every day felt like a new chapter, full of challenges and triumphs, and she began to feel like she was truly part of something bigger than herself. The world outside the foundation didn't always understand her decision. Some people criticized her for associating with someone like Elon Musk. Others questioned her qualifications, but Anna no longer cared. She had chosen to follow her heart, to embrace an opportunity that allowed her to grow, to contribute, and to make a difference. In the end, she knew that the smallest act of kindness, the one she had thought was insignificant, had set her on a path to change not just her own life, but the lives of others. She had found her place, and she was ready to make it count. The end.